Welcome, everybody. This is TruePowerIsMine. This is a special report. Today's date is January 28th, 2019, the year of our Lord. I am so pleased to have some very beautiful people. I'm so happy to say that they're fellow members of humanity, just like me. We're all sharing this experience on this earth. Real quick, I'm sorry that I've forgotten all your names because there's several people over there. I know Christopher's there. Would you just go through and introduce yourself for the audience?
My name is Christopher Stewart. I serve as the archivist and curator at Father Divine's Library and Museum at Woodmont in Gladwin, Pennsylvania.
My name is Lorraine Shanks. I'm an assistant archivist. There's many other titles here at Woodmont, Gladwin, Pennsylvania.
Peace. My name is Seraphim. I've been a follower for many years.
Peace. My name is Levi Dozier. I've been a follower since I was like 4 years old with the Peace Mission movement.
I'm Graham Westcott. I'm a co-worker here at Woodmont.
I'm Leon Jetta, and I've been around the mission since about 1939 in some capacity or so. And I thank you for hearing from us tonight.
My name is Roger Claus. I've been associated with Father Divine since 1956.
So that's who we are.
And I thank you guys once again for coming on the show. You know, just right off the bat, I would like to hear it from you guys in your own words. What is the history of the movement?
Who's going first?
I think Chris.
Well, Father Divine, the first date that we have for Father Divine is 1882. But the first documents that we have for Father Divine are 1912. So in either case, we're talking about a history that's more than 100 years old before when Father first appeared on the scene and the public started to take cognizance of him. Now, to the followers of Father Divine, Father is God. Father is God incarnate. He is the same soul that was manifest in Jesus Christ, returned in the fathership degree, which we understand to be the kingship of Christ that was prophesied in the New Testament. And we understand that Father came to establish Christ's kingdom on this earth by transforming the hearts and minds of individual human beings. We understand that if Father is truly God, He is the self in everyone, and so He is resident in our hearts, and anyone who is truly in love with God and truly moving toward God is following Father Divine, whether they know Him by that name or not. Father Divine was with us in the body, preaching and actively teaching up until September the 10th, 1965, and he did many great works during that time period. In the early days, he went down south and suffered at the hands of 32 lynch mobs and came out triumphant in each and every case. We know for sure that 2 of those locations were Charleston, South Carolina, and Savannah, Georgia. And we know that in 1912 he had a community of followers in Fernandina, Florida, who called him Father Divine and understood him to be God in human form. And many of those people who met up with Father in the South in those days became lifelong followers, came north and helped to establish this great collective that is the International Peace Mission Movement. At the peak of membership, there were over 30,000 direct participants, which makes the Peace Mission the single largest and one of the most successful economic cooperatives in American history. The Peace Mission was also a major force in integration, and whether someone regards Father Divine as God or not, it's objectively true that Father Divine was the single most important civil rights figure between Marcus Garvey and Martin Luther King. And the Peace Mission was marching in the streets with thousands of people, parades that took 5 and 6 hours to pass by in the 1930s, integrated groups, really wonderful political and social engagement, but setting an example, not just complaining about what's wrong with the prevalent order, but living out an actual sample and example through the economic cooperative. That's it in a nutshell.
Now I can see where people will be like, oh my God, that sounds communist. How do you tell people, how do you explain people when you say economic co-op, where people willingly come together and pool their money together? How do you explain that to the average American that would just say that sounds communism or socialistic?
Well, if you consult the book of Acts, it sounds very Christian. The early church is an economic cooperative. Jesus tells the rich man that he must first sell everything he owns and give it to the poor, and then he can begin to follow Jesus. But this is a voluntary movement. Unlike state communism or Stalinism, this is a voluntary collectivist movement. It's a response of the heart. It's something that the individuals participating in have freely chosen to do. So that would be one major point of distinction. But it's not something that you can really easily categorize economically, because it is an original system. It's an original voluntary cooperative system. And so it doesn't really fit into traditional capitalist or communist categories. It does have a little bit of all those. It has the good parts of all those.
Exactly. I was just about ready to say, because the reason why I would say it has the good parts is because it's actually still here right now. It's still moving forward. You're still helping folks out there. And the beautiful thing about it, you've been doing all this fine work, and you have not been in the news. You know, you haven't been the glory hounds. Oh, look at us! Look how cool. No, you kept your organization low key, and you've been doing the work that needs to be done. Real quick, this is for the young people. If you had the opportunity to tell a young brother or sister in the country or in this inner city, what's one thing they can do right now to kind of get them on the path to a greater awakening?
Yeah, peace. My name is Levi Dozier. I'm also a minister of the gospel, and I would say to them, if you just look at the ordinary publicity of the early America, like Dr. Stewart just was saying, it was a lot of hatred and racism and prejudice back then. But there's actual fact. If you look at the followings back then, they were international, interracial, and interdenominational, and they all lived in peace and harmony. So if the young people of today do the same, adopt that same love thy neighbor as thyself, and don't look at color in no way or race or creed, that would be a very perfect example. I think that would stop a whole lot of this hatred and racism and prejudice that's taking place today. If they really follow the Divine's example way back in those days, it would really help them to open up their eyes, to know that, because they only know the negative part of the history where there was a lot of racism, hatred, lynching, but that wasn't always so, especially if you look at the Peace Mission movement.
I like that. That's what I mean. It begins with understanding that we have a kind of a built-in bias because of the information that has been provided to us has been written by people who want to keep us separate. At the end of the day, after all the hate is peeled away, the very core of that is separation, period.
Yes.
And I know this is a very unpopular topic, even now in the present racial climate of our country right now. I think we should be talking about the things we have in common versus the things we don't have in common, because we truly need each other. We're going to need each other in the end more than you would ever imagine. And once again, that's why I take my hat off to your organization and to what you folks are doing, because you voluntarily standing up for the right cause, for all humanity.
That is correct, sir, and we're willing to die, as the human man may say, for that cause. But we are not for any particular race, creed, or color, or religion. We are for unity.
Yes. Yes, I'm totally with you. Totally with you on that. So, can I remember our conversation, Christopher. Would you please share the conversation about the pool in front of the home there? Why is there a swimming pool in front of the house, the big house?
Well,
Go swim.
when Mr. Rogers says to go swimming. Well, when this property was acquired in the early 1950s, just across the lane, there was a country club. The country club is still there, but in those days the country club was not integrated. Right across the street there were fancy, beautiful swimming pools that certain Americans could not take a dip in. And sort of as a, well, definitely as a sample and an example, and somewhat as a rebuke to that kind of exclusion, Father Divine put a very conspicuous swimming pool on the great lawn of this beautiful 1890s mansion here that is collectively owned by the church. And I regard it as a symbol of integration, because this was a place that sisters of light and dark complexion could swim together, and at other times brothers of light and dark complexion could swim together. This was not the only place that was done either, and it was done at the Kingston Estate in Ulster County, New York. And
Pinebrook, New Jersey.
Pinebrook, New Jersey. This was, because swimming was such a loaded thing in American culture and could cause riots. It was very instrumental in Father driving that point home. You know, the members of the Peace Mission live together, they eat together, they worship together, they work together. They ideally travel in integrated pairs. Ideally, when the numbers allow it and we sit for our Holy Communion banquet, we sit in alternating complexions. And this is a very powerful psychological picture that drives home the point that human beings can do all those things together as family, as the family of God. That's what we are. We are the family of God. We're all God's children. I know that Mr. Leon has another story about a swimming pool. Would you like to tell that?
Yeah,
That Mr. Leon.
yeah. My name is Leon Jetta. I served in the U.S. Army, and when I came home from there to greet Father and Mother and those at home here, some of the brothers thought that they wanted to go for a swimming, and I had just come back, and I'm still in my uniform. And I go along with another brother that was in uniform, and one brother that was representing the mail, was in action, taking care of the mail, delivery of the mail. He gave that 19th, and that's on 19th Street, just near Poplar, at that particular mail center. And we all got together. I must have been about 20 of us, something like that, integrated. When I say integrated, I mean people from Germany and France and Switzerland, and myself from America here as a soldier, and the other brother as a soldier, and the other one as a mail clerk. And we went up to the Boulevard pool, and it looks like we were going to get in, and the people looked like they wasn't going to sit. And then all of a sudden, they decided that even me and the other man that was in U.S. uniform still yet couldn't get in. They wouldn't let us in. The others they allowed in and give tickets and give towels and everything and allow them in and wouldn't allow us in. So we did put a court order against them, or had a hearing anyhow before a certain judge. And I think we have papers here that maybe Dr. Christopher can find somewhere in the New Days where the statements was made of the judge, just what he thought of what happened there. And he was the one that really pushed the integration a little bit more than we did, although we stood up to it. And we had one of the brothers that was an excellent trumpist, and he was the one that spoke the most, I think, at that time. But I didn't say very much, but I wasn't feeling so good about it. But anyway, I was fresh from the army, and I thought, well, I'm home now, and I'm back under Father's care, which I had been in since, I guess, maybe 1939 or something like that. And incidentally, in 1939, I could say that a car hit me and broke me up in such a way that today people don't even know that I was cut up and with certain bones broken, certain things like that. One cut on the leg, another one a glass in the eye, and cuts around the eye and cuts around the mouth and cuts around the side of each side of the throat like that, and one cut on the neck. Because when the car hit me, I had 2 kerosene jugs. I was crossing the street in New Jersey there where we lived. And when the car hit me, it broke up those glasses. And I guess it must have dragged me a few feet. And when it did take me to the hospital, I remember coming back in the ward there, and the nurse says, "Oh, he's coming back." And she give me some, put some more, what do you call that? It's not nitrogen. It's what do they call it? Huh? Huh?
That smelling salt, or
No, it wasn't smelling soft. It was stuff tougher than that. It knocked you right out.
Ether?
Ether. That's what it was. Ether. And it gave me ether, and the next thing I know, they had casts from 1 foot on the left side all the way up the side and around the body, the belly part of the body, or around the chest part of the body, because they didn't want me to move. That was one of my troubles. I was one of these so-called fast fellas, you know. And they put me there, and of course at that time, that was time that the World's Fair was about to begin. And I had already made up my mind I was going there. And this made up my mind I wasn't going there. but anyway, to talk about the court case, there we went there for 2 days, I think, to clarify our situation. And we had a lawyer and other things like that. I didn't say very much, but the other brothers really talked about what should be a better situation than what we had. Finally, they decided to let us in there. And when I did go up there, of course, I was in civilian clothes, and the brothers that was not let in before, they were all in civilian clothes. And we did go in, and I went in the pool as well at that time, so that broke that segregation down there at that time. And then we went out in the park and had something like that, and that was broken down too, meaning that people were allowed of all expressions and races, so to speak, and countries was allowed in there. So that was 2 things that Father put forth right there in us brothers. And there was others that did, and if you research in the New Day, you'll find out other places where it was done too, like that, to break down segregation. And I'll get out of the way now and let somebody else say something.
Oh, but can I add to the pool situation? Because this is Sarah. Mother Divine invited the children on the 4th of July and other times from the neighborhood in Philadelphia, because I don't think they had public pool openings at that time. Maybe they did. But anyway, Mother invited them, and they could come out here to Woodmont and enjoy the pool. Many of them were of dark expression, but she really tried to enact a bill with different races and nationalities. All through the years, since Woodmont was purchased by the followers in 1952.
Can you say what enact the bill means?
Yes, enact a bill means to have of different nationalities, different extractions, the Caucasians, the Afro-Americans, Hispanics, enact a Bill of Rights, yes, of different nationalities, light and dark expression. Even when we go out in public, we enact a bill on public transportation. Try to integrate. That's what it means, integration.
Yes.
Sit one light expression, find somebody that's light expression, sit next to that one. If you're dark expression, if you're just the opposite, enact a bill. We practice this in all of our audiences, the auditorium. auditoriums, the dining room, especially at the banquet table, one light, one dark expression, Afro-American, Hispanic, Aborigines, to integrate and mix like a bouquet of flowers. So that's what Mother Divine has done. A father and mother throughout the years invited the different children from the neighborhood that were unable to use the pools in those areas. Thank you.
And we can also say about swimming, it's not just swimming pools, it's also the ocean itself. The Brigantine Hotel in Brigantine, New Jersey was the first large hotel to be collectively purchased by the Peace Mission movement. And that was late 30s, very early 40s, right?
Yeah, about 1940, just about time the war began.
And Brigantine Beach there was the first integrated swimming area on the Jersey Shore in 1940. So
That's fact. So when you talk about those dates, because every time you're saying the 1930s, I'm thinking of the Depression. I'm thinking of Jim Crow laws. Honestly, was Father and Mother Divine ever threatened because of him being what is referred to as African American, her being European American or whatever, black or white? Was there any death threats held upon them, like from hate groups or whatever at the time?
My name is Roger. I'm just answering your question. There was a lot of prejudice, naturally, and Father went through a lot of scrapes, I guess you would say, both with the court system and with the prejudice on the New Jersey Turnpike. When Miss Seraphim was speaking about enacting the Bill of Rights, Father used to travel up and down the East Coast going from church to church in long limousines, and that was sort of a target for the state troopers in New Jersey, and they stopped Father's car on the New Jersey Turnpike and really.
So he was a target of law enforcement. I was thinking like fringy. I mean, I'm not naive. I know that there are bad people that serve as police officers, unfortunately, but I was thinking more random citizens.
both.
Well, random citizens, if the KKK is a random citizen, they burned a cross on one of our properties multiple times.
Oh,
And
that's unfortunate. Now, see,
you might have overlooked the fact that Father went through 32 lynch mobs. I mean, nobody did that I know of. So, I mean,
just the level of bravery one would have to exhibit in such a time as that, it's almost mind blowing.
Yeah, and whether it's individuals or law enforcement or the media, Father suffered all of those channels from different. Even when he was first found out in Sayville, Long Island, he was arrested for disturbing the peace and
Healing the sick.
yeah, but he was eventually facing Judge Smith and was tried and given the maximum sentence for disturbing the peace. Or what was it?
A year.
Yeah, 1 year sentence or so.
$10,000
And 3 days after the judge gave the sentence, he died.
Fine too.
And that conviction was ultimately reversed on 32 counts of prejudice
Yeah.
by the New York Appellate Court.
So, I mean, it was the same story with Jesus. He went through a lot of problems, and even one of his disciples sold him out. But when you want to know what we should advise to the young people, I would say live the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus gave in the 5th, 6th, and 7th chapters of Matthew. And if they have any question in their lives what direction they should go, think within themselves, what would Jesus do in this situation? And also I'd like to recommend what Father said about words carry germs, and to use racial terms to call your brother a so-and-so or something, immediately it's a germ of division. Even if you love that person, you shouldn't use that terminology. You should say dark complected or light complected, or you know.
Oh, I totally follow what you're saying. All the power on earth is in words. Your words have the power to uplift or the power to destroy.
Yeah, and it's a matter of thinking before you speak in order to bring about unity rather than bring about division.
Yes. And I guess the overall message of the movement seems like it's more than just peace. Isn't there a certain amount of personal, I guess, responsibility, or at least a personal code of ethics? I mean, other than obviously using correct language when talking to your brother and sister.
Anybody want to answer that?
They have an international modest code, you know, and there are creeds that they live by, and also though to live the life of Christ. Live the life of Christ, and that is really what we do up here. We live the life of Christ every day, every second of the day.
That's beautiful.
It's a way of life, you know. It's more than just going to church. No, we believe our bodies are the temples of the living God. So you have to live the life every day, every second of the day, to really truly believe that God has personified himself in you. Be the same as he is, be the same as if God was standing in front of you. Then when he is not in you, you stay the same. Live the life of Christ. It's a way of life. And I think if people can just look at it that way, then maybe it will be easier to do than following, you know, because some people don't want to become religious or become a part of a group or become a Baptist or become a this or that. But if you just learn to live the life of Christ and make it a way of life, you know, remove all the titles. And that's why here, Father accepts all religions, all races, all creeds, because Father believes that there one day will be the amalgamation of all religions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's the way that we all will come together. Because that's the real goal of all the religions, right? They believe in God, they believe in a higher power.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And there's actually been a meeting, was back in the late 90s, I believe, where the Pope invited Dalai Lama, he invited medicine shaman, he invited all these different leaders of all the different religions, and they had a little meeting, and a lot of the evangelicals got highly upset because they are still riding on the separation.
Well, and that's the divide that, you know, that keeps us divided in that way. So take away those titles, right? We are all practicing the belief in one God. There's only one God. One composed of many different names under many different sects, but really it's one universal God.
And I don't think anybody can disagree with that reality. I mean, we may call him, you know, whatever name you want, like you just said, whatever name. All these different names of history is coming to me at once. But it's not so much the name, it's the feeling and effect of knowing and serving him. That's where I believe the opening of the physical world comes into play. It's more important for me to believe these tenets, believe these ideals in my heart, than just merely profess them with my mouth.
I have a little quote here from Father Divine. Father says, well, I believe too, they would have to, if you don't know anything about the life of Christ, well, you know about the Declaration of Independence, and you know about the Constitution and its Bill of Rights and its amendments. So I have quotes from Father God. To be American citizens and express your citizenry and reality as American citizens, you should produce the spirit and the meaning of the Constitution and its amendments and bring it to fruition within you. And that part of that is according to the gospel. And I mean, this is not Father's quote, but according to the gospel, according to the Bible, as in the King James Version of the Holy Bible, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Sermon on the Mount is given in the 5th, 6th, and 7th chapters of Matthew. So, if you bring the spirit and the Americanism is our religion, and Father said, if you can bring the spirit and the meaning of our Constitution, and with his Bill of Rights and amendments to fruition within you, that will be automatically producing evangelism, and you will become to be a real American citizen, because Americanism is our religion. And Father Divine said, I came to America that I might be called an American. And see, that would produce evangelism, and when that is instilled and impregnated within you, you become to be a real nice person, real holy person, yeah, real a citizen, and a real nice person. And you produce that, and you're an asset to America.
No,
Father,
I mean, I know we can't for sure know, but pertaining to what's going on right now in this country, our country, what would Father and or Mother Divine say about the wall being built on the southern border?
oh boy.
There's no doubt about that one, Father. Father was calling for the easing of immigration barriers and the unification of the three Americas, North America, Central America, and South America, before World War II. Father Divine was calling for hemispheric unity. Let the Americas unite as a prelude to world union. Father Divine has said that America is predestined, despite all of the bloodshed and the horrors that have been perpetrated on this continent. Father Divine has said that America is predestined to be the birthplace of the kingdom of God. And it's important to understand that when we say Americanism, we don't want that to be confused with a lot of the belligerent flag wavers that are out there that have a superior attitude or that associate American identity with one race, creed, or color. No, that's not what Father means. Americanism is the amalgamation of all nations, languages, tongues, and peoples. Americanism is this dynamic force that allows people to come together and gives them a place where they can come together and worship God according to the dictates of their conscience. And when you have that freedom to approach God from the inner prompting, and there's nobody outside of you telling you you can't follow that, then the seed will blossom in you and it will flower, and ultimately it will become a living image of the Christ. And so we believe that Americanism is a potent force, but we mean the ideals of the Constitution regarding, and the Declaration of Independence, regarding individual liberty, the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We believe that all of these rights that are granted to us in those documents, the ideal expression of them is what we are aiming to achieve, and that's what we mean by Americanism, the ideal, not worship of governments. We worship God, and the government is ideally would be the instrument for manifesting God in the culture and population.
This is what I love about the truth. No matter if it was spoken 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it still rings true today. That was simply beautiful. I mean, I've always said, I love the concept and the ideal of America. I just hate the way it was implemented. The way it was implemented was wrong. But the truth of personal ownership, the truth of being able to worship in the manner that you see fit, the truth of being able to freely move about, those are, I think, are ideals that we all should be able to band together. I don't care what background you come from. It just as much benefits you as it benefits me to have these collective freedoms and for them to be protected equally amongst all of us. And I think that's the disconnect. So what would Father also say about, I'm sure you guys are aware, in the state of New York, they just made it, they just dehumanized babies or fetuses, if you want to use scientific term, so you can abort them, no questions asked. What would Father Divine or Mother Divine say about the present day abortion issue?
Those who are in that world, I guess that's their problem, but in the spiritual world, or in the life that we live, we don't have that problem, because we live virtue or chaste, celibate, and that's what Jesus taught. They came to him about marriage, and Jesus said, in heaven there is no marriage, and heaven is here and now. That's my thought of it.
Along those lines, we believe that America is the answer to Jesus' prayer, thy kingdom come and thy will be done on earth. And Father said that in order for the kingdom to come on earth, you have to have a constitution and a declaration of independence so that all races, creeds, and colors and all religions can unify in heaven on earth. And there's no heaven in the sky. I mean, there's no evidence of anything in the sky, according to the astronauts. So we believe that the personification of the Christ is right here on earth, and also the conscious mentality of the state of consciousness would be heaven on earth once everybody reaches that state of consciousness through self-denial and actually living like Jesus lived.
So I guess that's what I was talking about, was the personal responsibility. And it makes sense. If you're not out there fornicating and all that nonsense, then you don't have to suffer the consequences of that sin. And that makes absolute sense, honestly.
If you do that, then you can suffer the other place, just like if you don't do that, you can live in heaven.
I mean, if there was one thing, let's say that, that you had the power to change one aspect to humanity on a global level, and any of you guys can answer this, what would that be if you could change one aspect to humanity? What would you change?
I would say the Father said, if you want something done, do it yourself. So we're trying to do it ourselves.
I would say discontinue all racial terms.
Yes. Any other ideals?
Yeah, the one thing that all the people have forgotten, that God asked them to be ye also perfect as your Father is in heaven. And if we can do that, or even attempt to do that, that would be a feather in our cap. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and I was basically along that lines how I feel as well. What I would hope is that our Father would be able to change the hearts and minds of everybody. You know, I'm waiting for him to personify himself in us all. You know, 100% God. 100% God.
Father said the greatest gift you could give is to give a person a gift of God's presence, to recognize God's presence, and that solves all the problems. Thank you.
I second that one. That was what I was going to say.
That's a beautiful thought, by the way.
Yes.
That is truly a beautiful. I'm looking at I just want to make sure the listeners hear that the greatest gift you can give a person is to personify the being of God in that, or I guess recognizing the being of God in that person, the same being that's in you.
He's with
Yes.
you all the time, just like a little fairy.
Also, I would like to say that I would change all the hatred that's in the world in general, and also no dictatorship.
Yes.
Those two things, because there's individuals currently that it's all about them. They're not really thinking about no one else but self. So, and they really couldn't care less. So, but Father Spirit was never like that, and that's what I believe. I will grant the world with more love without dictatorship. That's it.
And another thing, Father said anyway, everyone was supposed to be born just like Jesus. I mean, they were supposed to be impregnated with the Holy Ghost and to be born just like Jesus, virtuous and pure. And when you recognize the presence of God and get His Spirit and His mind, eventually it's going to come about no matter how long it takes, because this is why Father came, to give us His words of spirit and life, so we'll have a perfect blueprint to go by, and not alter and not fail, because God has His footstool on the earth, and He's not going to take it off, and the kingdom of God is going to start right here in America. Of course, Father said, I came to America that I may be an American. And another thing they need to, Father said that He's going to universalize democracy. All these people that are flooding in from the different other countries where they have socialism, a dictatorship, communism, they need to start changing. They need to change. The government needs to change and universalize democracy, because our government, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, was founded by the founding fathers, and they were overwhelmed with God's Spirit and His mind, and that's how it was produced. Yeah. So that's just another little thought I thought I'd bring out, from Father Divine. Thank you.
Thank you. This is what I mean. When we actually take the time, I know we all have our busy lives, but we actually take the time to have these real conversations, to ask these questions, so that not just for our sake, but the people who could be hearing this broadcast for years to come, and on the record, there's nothing I think that was said tonight that is out of context or out of a scope. People will say this or people will say that, and a lot of that, if you really look into it, they're just people who are miserable. And guess what, guys? Misery loves company. Do not fall into their trap. If you want to learn something, if you need to learn something, obviously you should read a book. But if you can't do that, then you need to speak to people who have the knowledge, or at least the answers that you're seeking. And most importantly, I think this has been a hard thing for me to do, you have to be willing to accept the answer.
Yes, yes.
Well, He doesn't want to see us live in sickness, sorrow, pain, and then death. I mean, that's why He sent His Son, Jesus Christ. And Jesus has already paid the price. So all we have to do is to follow that example. An example in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's the perfect Sermon on the Mount. No matter what your religion is, Jewish, Buddhism, whatnot, Jesus Christ is the basic for us to get out of this sickness, sorrow, pain, and death. And that's why Father came, to give us, to back up Jesus' words, and to give us His words of spirit and life. He told us about Jesus and what we should do. I mean, we need to get back to the basics, and that's the King James Version of the Holy Bible. We need to get back to the basic principles of the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
That's because one of the brothers over there mentioned something about astronauts in the last day, and it's just to tie these two thoughts together, to show you how real God is. No matter if you're in outer space or you're down here on Earth, you're still going to need air, you're still going to need food, and you're still going to need water, the bare minimums. Right. The reason why I say this, I want to illustrate that no matter where you go at in this universe, you are in a condition that only can be solved by work, What I mean by work, you have to get up and dig a well now to get that water, or walk down there to the river. You got to get up now and plant that crop so you can harvest it later. You got to even get up just to build a home to sit your butt down in one day.
Yeah.
Everything that we need to fix ourselves requires work. And work is not a bad thing as long as the purpose is righteous.
Right. And another thing, God is everywhere. He's in the sky too. But he's down here. And he's in the sky too. He's everywhere. He's not just in the sky, looking up to the sky, praying for God. He's up there, he's down here, he's everywhere. You just have to recognize his presence.
When we say that there's no heaven in the sky, part of what we mean by that is that the real and deep meaning of heaven is that heaven is a state of consciousness. Father said that where a king reigns, there his kingdom is. And Jesus has told us that the kingdom of God is present already and spread out all over the world, but men don't see it. Well, when God reigns in our hearts, we are in the kingdom of God. And when we come together collectively and let God reign in our hearts as a group, we have expanded the kingdom of God and we have materialized the kingdom of God. I'm going to read you a paragraph here, one paragraph from a 1943 letter from Father Divine, in which he says, "By this you can see the true relationship between Christianity and democracy. The former spiritualizes the latter, and the latter materializes the former. Hence, one cannot get along without the other. It is for this cause that you can see how I have successfully established the true citizenry of millions under the flag of the free. I have supplied the missing link. I have restored man's faith in God, and caused the people of this democracy to realize that the freedom, peace, and security of this nation is established in the great Constitution of the United States." Father has also said that true Christianity, true Judaism, true Americanism, true Buddhism are synonymous. That the core of these teachings is to treat our fellow sisters and brothers as we wish to be treated. The golden rule, that's what makes them synonymous. These traditions all embody the golden rule. And
Second commandment.
And the great thing about the founding documents of the United States is that they give a system, a social system, in which we can make that more real. It might have been easy 10,000 years ago in a tribalist society where the government wasn't a big force, but we lost that when we developed these empires. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Could you, I hate to ask this of you, brother, but would you please read that paragraph just one more time for us?
Sure. Father says, in 1943, "By this you can see that the true relationship between Christianity, by this you can see the true relationship between Christianity and democracy. The former spiritualizes the latter, and the latter materializes the former. Hence, one cannot get along without the other. It is for this cause that you can see how I have successfully established the true citizenry of millions under the flag of the free. I have supplied the missing link. I have restored man's faith in God and caused the people of this democracy to realize that the freedom, peace, and security of this nation is established in the great Constitution of the United States."
Wow. See, he did not say it was established in the Great Wall.
That's right.
I love that paragraph. I do. It's so telling. That should be in every schoolhouse in America.
You're right.
Every schoolhouse.
Oh,
Right after we
yes.
say the Pledge of Allegiance, we should say the pledge
That's what
of,
Mother
what do we say,
said.
humanity.
Mother said they should practice to have a course in Americanism in the schools, in the public schools. She said that years ago.
And she's correct.
Yeah.
Look, we have taken God out of our schools and replaced him with selfishness and anger and frustration. We have taken spirituality out of our hearts and we have replaced it with prescription drugs and quack
And that's-
psychiatry.
And that's the problem. That's part of our problem.
And this is the consequence. This is the sin that we will collectively suffer unless we do what, guys? We turn away from our wicked ways and realize there's nothing wrong with messing up. I even tell my own 4 children this. There's nothing wrong with messing up, but there's something wrong with staying dedicated to continuing messing up in the same way.
Right.
We have to change. We're human beings. We can use our brains. We can use our hearts. And we can use our souls. We can change this thing, but it takes a conscious effort on the people to do it.
Yeah.
This is Leon again. I'll say to you this, when one of the interviews that I had with Father Divine in past years, where I was kind of controversial with statements about people and things like that, Father stopped me right in the middle of one of my statements, and he said to me, remember, the Christ is in every man. And of course, when he said every man, I took that to be humanity. And the idea is for you to contact in the Christ in the other person, and let the Christ in you and the other persons figure these things out so that you can come out of these different difficulties. Because it is difficulties that we manufacture as human beings, and not that what God manufactured. God manufactured righteousness, justice, and truth. But we the people are the ones that did all this other sideline stuff that's got us here messing up with each other like we are, killing and hurting and doing and all the different things that we've done. So now the time has come that we have to get on this page where we can recognize God in the other person as well as yourself. And the two will be agreeable at some point if we can get together. Thank you.
That was, I know you guys will understand this concept. I try to say that some people just don't get it. If you really want to really win a war or conflict or whatever, the greatest victory isn't killing your adversary. The greatest victory is turning your adversary not just into your friend, but into your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
So I very few interviews I get where I just feel like the spirit or whatnot, but this is one of them. You can actually feel the realness of what we're talking about tonight. What we're talking about tonight, folks, can literally save humanity. It can literally save this nation. It can literally save our families. It can literally save that little girl who's about ready to get injured right now by some predator out there, because there will be righteous men and women on the lookout. Cops can't be everywhere. FBI, CIA, they can't be everywhere. But good men and women, there's enough of us down here, we can be everywhere if we are on the same accord.
Yes. And what you said just a moment ago, see, that's because we are at the house of the Mount of the Lord. This is what Woodmont is considered. This is the New Jerusalem. So all the information that you get through here is spiritual information. All the information in the library museum, Father Divine's library museum, is filled with Father's words that will give you a new spirit and new life under God when you come here. That's what this library is like, the conscious mind of Father Divine. This is where all his words that he spoke are all filtered right here in this library museum. So it's more than just an ordinary library museum. This is a spiritual, conscious museum that is alive.
And the world has an invitation to come.
Yes.
I just want to tell, and I told this to Christopher, because I've talking to Christopher on the phone prior to this, actually. I just want to and tell all you guys there, too, that's working with preserving the words and keeping the library. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys understand that some of the work that you guys are protecting and keeping safe is just as valuable as all those books that were burnt up in the Library of Alexandria back in the day. I hope you guys really understand the real purpose, even though you're not up there on the big old glitter board and oh, blah, blah, blah. You guys don't need all that because you're humble, sincere people. And that's, I just want to say, as a human being, just a fellow human being on this earth, thank you guys for being so selfless to do the work that you do.
Thank you.
We thank you.
That's our calling.
Speaking of being selfless, Father Divine is totally selfless and made no reputation for himself. And he said over and over, I am spirit, I am spirit, I am spirit. And there's no egotism or big me and little you. None of that is in the doctrine of Father Divine or in the doctrine of Jesus. And if you would be available sometime to come and enjoy a Holy Communion banquet with us and really see the library, not only this conversation, but what you would experience would probably light you up.
That'd be awesome. I mean,
I'm serious. I'm serious. I want you to come and see us and meet us face to face, and then you can tell the radio audience around the world what you experienced.
And that you've been to the house of the Mount of the Lord.
Yeah, I'm not joking. I mean, I bring my whole family with me.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Okay, and
that's how we. I mean, I definitely did my part on replenishing the earth again. I mean, I'm sure you guys can hear them in the other room. On my show, you always will hear children laughing and playing because I believe that that's one of the sweetest sounds to my ear as a father. Hearing children, you know they're safe. You know that they're having fun and they're enjoying life.
Yeah,
and that's all we have. You know, I mean, on this 3-dimension, obviously spiritually we have a lot more than that. I'm just talking about as a simple father and a husband. These little simple things. It's not your son or daughter being the greatest in school or what. No. It's just the fact that they love each other and that once I'm out of this body, I'm going on, that they will still be a unit. That's all I'm trying to do as far as raising them, you know, in a social setting, obviously in the spiritual contents, a lot more than that.
Right, but those
this would be a great experience for them too.
Yeah, because what you are saying, this whole conversation is also resonating and going through them as well, you know, because words are or energy. So it's being transferred to them as well. It's not just, just for you. You know, that's how I feel, you know, that they're taking in their way, you know, because we're like little recorders.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are.
Right, so trust me, they are on the same frequency because they're standing there and they are around you.
Yes. And, you know, and I just want to get back to Father and Mother Divine, you know, and I'm kind of ashamed that, you know, I have to say this, but I did not even know about them until I started doing the show a couple of years ago. It was actually a listener was talking to me because a lot of my show ideals I get from the listeners, and they sent me the website, and I checked it out. It was like a Google search, and I was just looking at all the pictures, and when I saw the picture of that dining hall, and then I saw a movie about it, I believe in the 30s, when I saw those folks, black, white, sitting there eating lunch, it psychologically blew my mind away because I'm very, you know, good on history, and I'm like, they have lied to me. All those years, these history books, like, people were here, they were eating together, they were loving together, you know, in a normal way, not in a stupid kind of way. They were loving each other and being decent human beings. This is the way the world should have been back in 1972 when I was born. This is how the world should have been when I was born. We shouldn't have all this hate.
Well, I just wanted to say that with my family came along about 4 generations ago. My grandfather, great-grandfather was here. My grandfather, then my dad, and then me, and my children were all from mine. It was wonderful how in the 1950s, Father had did something that he had never did before for a family, and it really went out all over the world. And when we would come up to Woodmont, me as a young girl, we were treated like celebrities. People were coming up to us, you know, you heard stories about the family, and his father had never did anything personally for anybody. So I'll just tell you a brief story. It was my grandfather was Reverend Charles Boyer, and there was a home in the Forest Hills section of Newark, New Jersey, and it was purchased in the early 1950s by a group of nurses who were followers of Father Divine. When they moved in, the neighbors noted their different complexions and went to the authorities to get them out on the pretext that it was a single family dwelling. We knew it was more than just that it was a single family dwelling, just because of the complexions of their skin. So the townspeople wanted them out. The authorities agreed and decreed that the residents must be blood relation to live in that place. So Father understood their motivation, and when he and the nurses agreed to comply, him and the nurses agreed to comply. So Father, compliant to the city's rule, put my family in there. And my family was, at that time, it was 16 children, but only 13 families were able to move in. And they were all of one. So there was nothing that the townspeople can do. They complied with what they said they wanted them to do. So instead of it being, because the nurses, I believe, were different nationalities. So this, you put one family in there of brown complexion. So you didn't want the motif ones. I'm going to put one family in there, all one complexion. It's about 15 of them, and they put them in there, and the authorities had no legal grounds to refuse them. And what this did, it resulted in the integration of that neighborhood and the schools. The school children were wholeheartedly accepted, and soon the problem disappeared. The neighborhood was not segregated anymore. So Father had the victory.
That is all. You know,
Oh, and my dad was treated in school like he was Christ. Oh, the people of the fair skin loved my family so much. My grandmother was actually a little afraid because the children drew to my family like they were Christ.
you know,
Always, they would crowd him. The fair skinned people would crowd him. So they had to make an announcement over the loudspeaker because so many people were crowding my dad. We have to walk down the hall single file lane now because there were so many students crowding around Robert Boyer.
that's
And that was in the
amazing.
1950s. There was no parties unless one of the fair-skinned people called the house. Oh, can Bobby come to the party? And then, with my family not knowing anything about racism, they didn't grow up with it in their hearts. They went everywhere when they moved in the neighborhood. They
They
went
didn't know no
everywhere.
better.
Right. And so what happened was the other children started to come together
Yes.
to places where they weren't able to go at times. And then the children started to go home and talk to their parents. And so Father, really did a wonderful work there in that segregated neighborhood. You think about it, at that time, they could have been met inharmoniously.
Yes.
Or they could have been doing everything to them to try to get them out of here. But see, when God does something, it's more than just right. He did more than just give them a home. And I'm sure it went even beyond that we even know how many more souls and hearts that Father touched at that time.
Exactly.
But it was really wonderful, and that is definitely a part of Father's history to be told.
That kind of magnetism came from the fact that they were hovered by the spirit of Father Divine in that time period. That kind of magnetism is because Father's spirit was with them, and they were willing to cooperate with Father in this work, and so it went smoothly for them, and it was a blessing for all concerned.
It was, and I just want to add this too. When I reached out, it was to you, Christopher, on Facebook. I tracked down that Facebook page. The day that I saw the lunch counter, or not the lunch counter, but the lunchroom scene, and that message had sat there, and it sat there, and it sat there, and you finally contacted me back, and I was blown away. Because after a while, if you don't hear back from a person, you just figure, okay, I guess I'm just too small of a show, or just too insignificant, or whatever the case may be. But it's when I finally made contact with you, and I was actually talking to you, I knew that my patience, it paid off. I knew that this was meant to be, not like in a some sort of business sense of no, none of that, but it was right timing. This is what it's all about. And I just want to say, just on the record, and normally I try to keep it an hour show where it's a few minutes over, but I just want to say, just thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to send you this link. If the audio, for whatever reason, my equipment here is not the best. This is $1 million studio by no means, but I hope that the audio. I did test it right before the show. To the listeners, if there's any problems, the kids got a little louder, I just want to say I'm sorry. But this will not be the last time we have this conversation. This will not be the last time I will have them back on the show. And hopefully by then we will have what we need to make the audio on par with any professional outfit situation out there. But at this time, I just want to be quiet. And if you guys have anything you guys want to share pertaining to Father Divine, the movement at all, or just a statement in general, please at this time feel free to say whatever you like.
Can I give you one more letter from Father Divine that wraps up several of the points that were raised tonight?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, this is a letter from Father Divine, 18th of March, 1943. Father says, your letter of the 17th has just come to hand, and I am indeed glad to know that one who is now my follower has liquidated an indebtedness of many years' standing. It is not a shame. Is it not a shame? Is it not a shame that work such as this should be denied recognition by the press and authorities, that I might be allowed access to lead the nations of the earth out of vice and crime, sin and debauchery, war and strife? Those who desire to live selfishly and cling to the prejudices of their ancestors realize that I am a threat to all unrighteousness. Hence, they do not desire to see me and my work and mission advance. The authorities of cities and states, and even the federal governments of other nations as well as this country, know that I have lifted millions and millions off the relief rolls and out of vice and crime of every kind, causing them to pay their honest debts and express the perfection of American citizenry. I stress Americanism even for those who are of foreign birth as the highest light of political understanding given to man. For according to our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence, true Americanism grants equality, liberty, and justice, and the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Thus, by living the principles of true Americanism and enacting and bringing to fruition a real democracy, I have brought millions of every nation, language, tongue, and people together in the unity of the spirit, of mind, of aim, and of purpose, to enjoy the reality of happiness which the nations seek. Naturally, such blessings as my followers enjoy do not come about without self-denial. They require the denial of prejudice, of graft and greed, of hatred, jealousy, and strife. In short, it means the denial of all the characteristics of Hitlerism, which are in opposition to the spirit and meaning of true Americanism. You cannot have true Americanism without equality. Hence, those who refuse to grant equality to every citizen under the jurisdiction of this government, where equality is constitutionally granted, are not Americans in spirit and mind, but they are aliens to democracy and allies of Hitlerism. By my stand for real democracy, you can see where the shoe pinches those who do not desire to walk in the path of true Americanism, and you can tell those whom the shoe of equality pinches, for they do not want to see the promulgation of my work and mission. However, it is not by power nor by might, but by my spirit that I shall accomplish my endeavors, even as I have already caused millions of every so-called race, creed, and color to unite together and express the perfection of honesty, morality, and virtue. So shall I cleanse the nations of the earth of unrighteousness, for I am daily showing all humanity how to curb vice and crime, and how to end war and strife through the unity, harmony, and cooperation of all people. And Father closes most of his letters with this blessing, this affirmation. As I advance this truth, I would that all mankind might become to be, even as this leaves me, as I am well, healthy, joyful, peaceful, lively, loving, successful, prosperous, and happy, in spirit, body, and mind, and in every organ, muscle, sinew, joint, limb, vein, and bone, and even in every atom, fiber, and cell of my bodily form. Respectfully and sincere, I am Reverend M.J. Divine, better known as Father Divine.
Wow, that was so beautiful. That's the first time I ever heard those words, guys. To you guys, you heard these every day, but I'm literally almost about ready to cry here. That has touched me that much. The words are true. I mean, you can tell, and the way I can say it is true because if you really break down what he's saying either you give up the old ways that don't work and you embrace the new ways that will work. And I hope and I pray that this broadcast tonight hits the right ears so that they don't have to go 40 something years before they hear or see a glimpse of the light. They can get it right off the bat at 15, 17, 18. Because the demographic on the show, we typically deal with guys that are 18 to about 34, that age range. And women. I am pleased to say that last month the show was like 97, 98% male viewership. Something amazing happened. The ladies are catching on, and now us guys, we're only down to 85% viewership. So it's a good thing. That's a good thing because the message that I want to promote and propagate is one that does include women and children and everyone. Everyone plays a role in this because I truly think we have given all these unrighteous things a shot. I really do believe it's time to implement the United States the way it should be. And we will be okay if we do that. So, right now in the past 28 days, I have 50,000 views on the channel. Basically, I'm more interested in the watch time minutes. I know that a lot of people they want the viewership, but what good if a person clicks on your deal and they leave? They don't even listen to it. I'm pleased to say in the past 28 days on my channel, we had 1,200,000 and something thousand watch time minutes. That means people are sitting down and they're really looking at the material. Yeah, so I mean, and this is, and once again, this is not me at all. I don't take any of the whatever. This is because I believe that people are tired of these canned, pre-made news shows or talk shows that are just so scripted. Everything that has happened tonight, this whole dialogue between you folks and myself, has been honest and sincere on both sides of the phone here. No one's out here trying to deceive nobody. Nobody's out here trying to lie to nobody. We're just reaffirming that I think we all want to see peace, prosperity, and happiness and goodness for our fellow brothers and sisters. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we can be found at peacemission.info. We can be found at worldwideweb.libertynet.org/FDIPMM. That stands for Father Divine's International Peace Mission Movement. We can also be found on YouTube under the channel Father Divine Information. And on Facebook, we have 2 pages. One page, Reverend M.J. Divine, and FD Library Museum. Those would be the two ends of the Facebook addresses for those two pages. So that they could search for, on Facebook, they could search for Father Divine, or they could search for Father Divine's Library and Museum.
Gotcha.
Father Divine's page has devotional content and lots of wonderful quotations and photographs from Father and Mother. And the library page tends to focus more on the physical collection that we have here. And I would like to say that this collection is a very large collection. We believe that when everything is finally cataloged in about 10 years, there will be over 1 million pieces. This is a very large collection, and if you do, for those that would consider it a collection dedicated to a dark complexioned American, it is probably one of the 3 largest collections dedicated to any dark complexioned American. Over 50,000 letters from Father Divine, at least over 250,000 photographs that document Father's life, Mother's life, and the life of this wonderful integrated collective.
That's so beautiful.
It's a national treasure. Whether the people are drawn to the idea that Father is God or a spiritual authority, they're Americans, and this is part of their history.
Exactly.
And they should be aware of it.
I love, Christopher, I loved how you said that at the end. Irregardless of what you view in his spirituality level or whatnot, he is an essential part of this collective experience called the American society that we all participate in. And if you're going to learn about some of these other Americans, I think it would behoove you to also learn about this also fellow American as well. Well, I just want to say, just hold on the line, guys. I'm just going to end this, and then I want to talk to you guys just a couple more moments after this. But thank you, everybody. Once again, this has been Special Report. I have been so fortunate to have this panel tonight from Father Divine's Peace Movement. And please join us again. I don't know the next show's coming up per se. But as always, live your life with integrity, without hate, envy, or greed, and let's try to be kinder to each other. Peace. Thank you all.